Okay, everyone, we're going to go on to our next speaker for today, Dr. John Bruchalski, who's kind of a role model of mine. As some of you guys know, we started a pro-life OBGYN clinic here in Fresno, and we've been working on it for a year and a half and growing it, and Dr. Bruchalski is sort of an old hand at that. So Dr. Bruchalski is the founder of Tepeyac OBGYN, which is a pro-life, faith-based practice in Fairfax, Virginia, which has been serving women in the DC metropolitan area for 25 years. With Tepeyac's unique model, it's the first of its kind to provide patients, including those who are uninsured or with low income, with quality medical care of the highest life-affirming standards. That's according to his website, and it is indeed true. I have a couple of friends who are patients at Tepeyac who've loved the experience, and they've provided a ton of care to lower-income women, and they do really wonderful stuff. Dr. Bruchalski received his MD from the University of South Alabama College of Medicine in Mobile, Alabama in 1987. He completed his residency in obstetrics and gynecology at Eastern Virginia Medical Center and the Jones Institute for Reproductive Medicine in Norfolk, Virginia in 1991, and received his board certification in 1993. And Dr. John is going to share with us some of his story about his work as a pro-life physician. And after Dr. John's talk, we'll dig a little bit more into California-specific stuff about, again, ways in which the abortion industry is getting between parents and children. But for now, I'd like just give a warm round of applause to my buddy, Dr. John Bruchalski.
It's so good to be with you here over the telemedicine connection. It's a real blessing after the abuse telemedicine has taken with medicalized chemical abortions. This idea of sharing my unique position with you all is a real blessing for me, and I absolutely respect your time and interest. I'm trying to reflect on what the last year of Dobbs has been, but the first principle of our practice is that health is relational. You can look at an age group like myself. I'm 62, I'm overweight, hypertensive, diabetic. I've been in a coma, I've been in an ICU, I have a pacemaker. However, if you collected people like myself and put us all together and kind of standardized all the risk factors, what really matters about health is relationships. And for myself as a Christian, it's the Ephesians 4:22-24. We were taught, with regard to your former way of life, to put off your old self, which is being corrupted by deceitful desires, to be made new in the renewal attitude of our minds, and to put on the new self. Well, I used to do first, second, and third trimester abortions during the first 2 years of my residency. I thought I was helping women. I thought I was doing right by them and by my calling as a doctor. Now, I grew up in a wonderful, Bible-strong Christian family. Over time, I became a man and woman pleaser rather than someone who feared the creator of the universe, our Abba. And that approach, that change of heart, that hardening of heart that I had, absolutely clouded my science, my relationships, my whole being, body, soul, and spirit. And I'm convinced that this ripple effect of abortion does this to those who really give themselves over to this practical solution of how do you handle poverty? How do you handle health? How do you handle illness? How do you handle being told what to do? How do you handle having no other choice, that your doctor and your family and your boyfriend and your partner all encourage you to destroy life in order to save your own? And so I wrote a book recently through a California publisher, Ignatius Press, called Two Patients. And essentially, that book is about my experience growing up in a great family, wandering away from my family, my core beliefs, and wandering away from science, and wandering away from the care of compassion and friendship and hospitality. I wandered away from Christ, thinking that I was doing good. And this Two Patients is about that transformation that happened internally to me. And it really happened finally as I was working at a pregnancy center at night. Can you imagine going to an evangelical church that was associated with the pregnancy center, praying for God's best for these clients that would come through the doors of the Pregnancy Resource Center? We were beginning to medicalize. I never told them that during the daytime and on my nights on call, I was doing the work of a resident, which meant caring for patients very, very sick in OB, that's women with children, as well as gynecology, women without children. And throughout all of it, I was permeating all of that care for others with the whole attitude of abortion, that until you decide what your life should be, I should give you whatever you want because you're the patient. And I'm no longer a doctor, I'm kind of a vending machine. So one night I had in one room a baby at about 1.5 pounds big, supposedly, 23 weeks gestation. That's how far along it was in the pregnancy for any moms in the audience. And in the very next room, I had the same patient, 23 weeks, mom in early labor. But in one room, the mother wanted the child, her child. And in the other room, the mom did not want the fetus. And it was starkly contrasting. In one room, I'm whispering in her ear that she's going to be okay, that we're going to take care of her to the best of our ability, that we are going to stop this labor, and that we are going to help her hold on to this dear child. In the very next room, the mother didn't want it, I didn't want it, the hospital didn't want it, so I broke her water and aborted her. That baby came out alive. It was a failed abortion. My first instinct was to suffocate the child. However, I picked the baby up by the head and it weighed too much. It felt too heavy. I mean, I'm a good doctor. I love histories and physicals and talking to my patients. And I pray every one of you in the audience have found a healthcare practitioner who sees you with the dignity as being a member of the human family, either scientifically, genetically, or added to that, part of the Our Father community, as I would say, the brothers and sisters in the Lord. I pray that for California. I pray that on the center in Fresno with my friends. I threw the fetus, after not suffocating it, on the scale, and it was 5 grams. It was weight of a few pennies over the limit where I had to call the nursery. I had to hit the button, and now not only was it a failed abortion, but I had to try to save the child because the weight made me follow law. The law at the time was abortion on demand. That's what I was doing. The law said if it's over 500 grams, even 505, got to go care for this infant. But it was a second earlier, it was a fetus. My heart was so hardened that I was just upset that this fetus got in the way of my care for this woman. I was pitting baby against the mother. Never, ever do that again. In walked the NICU doctor, and she challenged me. Why are you treating my patients like tumors? Hey, Dr. John, why don't you have coffee with me tomorrow? And that began a journey into the heart of Christ, back into the science of OBGYN, caring for two patients, and it was life transformative. Before I go any further, because I'm going to finish up here in about 5 to 10 minutes, I want you to know that my mom and dad, even though they were so disappointed when I told them to their face, I was aborting fetuses, because that's the way of the future. That's what's going to bring happiness. That's what's going to make men and women equal. Little did I know, they never stopped praying for me, interceding for me, educating me. My dad is a pro-lifer. My mom just prayed. He took his students to the March for Life. He always encouraged me to follow Jesus. But for whatever reason, I followed people. I was a people pleaser. That's essentially what happened. After I came and found the love of Jesus Christ, because of that doctor, professor, wonderful sister in Christ who challenged me, corrected me fraternally in love as family, I went on a journey with my family and I found the heart of Christ. So now coming off this, I was flat on the ground. I was overwhelmed in my prayer. Not only was the data coming in, abortion and breast cancer, abortion and preterm labor, abortion and disease, mental illness, but I was beginning to surround myself with young students who could see I was better than providing abortions. And lo and behold, over the next 2 years, when I returned back to my residency, I put abortion behind me because I was a new self. I was a new creation. And the power of that in the Word of God, I think we're at a church here. It's unbelievable that God's mercy, me as a prodigal son, could go back and be changed and loved. So now I had to do something. And he said, Johnny, be excellent. See the underserved alongside the served. And oh, by the way, follow the word, follow my church, follow my teaching, follow my commandments, follow the love of caring for the least. For what you do to them, you do unto me. So now we started Tepeyac OBGYN back in 1994. It's been almost 29 years now that we're coming up on our 30th anniversary next year. The reason why people are interested in talking to us, and I've got some street credibility, is that we've done this for almost 30 years. Now, we started off as a for-profit practice, and we ended up as a not-for-profit, because what I understood was that Matthew 5 and 6 and 7, the Beatitudes, is what following Christ means. It means accompanying people. We don't use abortion, ever. We don't intend it. It's not part of great medicine. No matter what the world says, oh, you need abortion to help miscarriages, help ectopics, help the life of the mother. No, you never pit mom against baby, ever. Now, what Divine Mercy Care, which is my second chapter after Tepeyac, is that we're now teaching others. Right after you, someone from Chicago is interested in our almsgiving model of providing health care. Why? Because I'm not right-wing or left-wing. I'm a new creation in Jesus Christ. And I say this with all sincerity to a public forum. My politics is about the dignity of the human person as part of the human family. You're one of us. I'm one of you. We're the same. And since Dobbs, we've been given this another opportunity to serve and to get into the public arena, no matter what happens with law. The Beatitudes cover it all. Blessed are those who are meek and patient. Blessed are those who are merciful. That's why we believe medicine is an act of mercy. It's like housing the homeless, clothing the naked, visiting the sick. It's about instructing those who don't know. It's about helping those see the real vision, walking with women, because it's more about saving babies. It's about giving excellent care to the walking wounded. The numbers of women out there who have bought the lie of the sexual revolution, their lack of finding purpose and meaning and relationship. Health is relational. Medicine's an act of mercy. You hate the disease, but love the patient. And that love is absolutely merciful. We have a perinatal hospice to care for sick babies in the wombs of their mom. Yeah, we don't offer abortion. We see women of all backgrounds because we're an almsgiving practice. 65% of our patients are insured. The other 35 can be not insured. They can be illegal. We meet them where they are. And so we want to share this with others. And I just want to close and say, I am so grateful to be here with you all. And what we're sharing here is the secret of Dobbs. It's people struggling to build a better world, a more truthful world, a more honest world. It's the way, the truth, and the life. And I really believe that this is something that we're all doing. And as you go through the California nuance, that's how the Holy Spirit works differently here in Virginia versus California. And yet that spirit unites the East Coast and the West Coast, and we can become friends. And please, if you have any questions after this conference, especially those in the audience about medicine and pregnancy centers and life-affirming care, I'm sure they'll share my contact information. And I am just delighted to my brother for this invite.
Well, thank you, Dr. John. Let's give a round of applause for Dr. John. All right, Dr. John, I'll feed you a few questions from the audience. Mm-hmm. Yep. Oh, the spelling of his last name. Bruchalski. So I'm giving it for the
Oh my gosh, you get 100.
So I got it for him. Don't worry about it.
Dr. John's a lot easier. John. Dr. B.
Dr. B, yeah. As a fellow John with a difficult to spell last name, I know the.
Yes, Johnny,
I know
absolutely.
Yeah. Any other questions for Dr. Bruchalski? I've got one. So, Dr. John, one of the things we've been talking about today is the abortion pill and its relatively recent, much larger proliferation, especially since President Obama's 2016 deregulation and now President Biden's allowing abortion pills to be shipped through the mail. What are you seeing in the context of your practice or maybe other OBGYNs as far as number of patients who are opting for the abortion pill, complications after the abortion pill? You're kind of the boots on the ground, and I was curious to ask sort of what kinds of things you're seeing as far as impact, and especially on minors, if you have any thoughts on that.
Sure. So the abortion pill, as we know it today, is at least 60, 70, even 80% of the numbers of abortions. And we have no real idea because it's not meant to be reported yet. So this is the best guesstimates we can make. So remember, it's all about access. It's not about making abortion rare. It's about making it accessible, because if we're all speaking the same abortion mantras, It's good for you. You're brave. It's merciful. We're bastardizing words in order to keep the woman in shame and fear, because Planned Parenthood is about shame and fear. Don't tell your parents. I know you're young. Don't tell them. They're gonna come against you. No, when you take the abortion pill and you have to go to the emergency room in that probably 20% of the time, because we haven't taught you about the abomination of watching the blood and clots come out of you in an abortion, in your home, in your bed, in your hallway, in your tile, in your toilet. That image for any of us, including myself, remember, I'm as post-abortal as anyone, but through God's mercy and grace, I've been forgiven, and I now am not shamed anymore. I share this with others because I've walked that road. I've terminated 5-pound babies, 2-pound babies. I've torn arms off. And so what happens with the chemical abortion, they're just now interested in access because they see the writing on the wall. They've lost the science debate through ultrasounds and through better studies that are honest. They've lost the debate because the American Association of Pro-Life OBGYNs is now looking at data from a non-abortion perspective. How can you trust data points that were done by the abortion industry who's making a profit off of it? So now we have data, the science is lost, and they're in free fall. So they're going to open it up because they're clawing back. And that's where we're going to see the post-trauma, the post-abortion trauma is going to be, I would guess, 5 times to 10 times more, because surgical abortions are done when you're asleep or you're in a fog or you have been lied to and somebody's holding your shoulder. No, and in the short term, the human person says, I had to do this. It's a good thing. Lastly, this idea that you can use these endocrine blockers. Remember, one of the medicines that is used in a chemical abortion is an endocrine blocker. Think of the plastics. Think of all of us in the audience with hypothyroidism, where something is blocking the receptors. Well, now you've added mifepristone, RU486. And we're now doing it over the counter, just like I believe they just put a birth control, FDA birth control pill. These young women who are choosing this, it's going to be one, an endocrine blocker for them, and all the damage that comes with that, the blocking of progesterone at the receptors in her body. But also, too, think of when we talk about child trafficking, think about young people trafficking. Some man, some boy, some master calls up, talks her into it, and we now start using chemical abortion as a method of not having a child. This is like a joke, and we're not talking about Plan B, we're talking about abortion here. So anyway, thanks for the question.
Yeah. Yes, sir, Melinda? Getting another question.
So I kind of heard him mention about different names for this abortion pill. Our Fresno Unified retirees, our insurance has just changed. So I called Costco because I wanted to see if they're dispensing this pill. Now they're calling it the B pill.
Plan B, yeah.
They don't really say the abortion pill. It's like for $50.
Yeah, so the question was coming in about sort of what is sort of the terminology or nomenclature that's being used for the abortion pill. So there is some medication which is referred to as Plan B, which is that is taken usually the day after a sexual encounter, and I think it primarily functions as a genuine contraceptive to prevent ovulation. It does have a backup mechanism like many chemical contraceptives to prevent implantation. So that's probably not, quote, the abortion pill. Now, I'm going to talk in the next segment about, in the next talk, for my talk, about California insurance mandates for abortion, and I'll get into that.
Hey, Johnny.
Yeah.
Was that Melinda in the audience that did that?
That was
To ask that question?
Ermelinda.
Ermelinda?
Ermelinda's her name, yeah.
Okay, Ermelinda. Smart, good question. But just like we're confusing Plan B versus the abortion pill, imagine you are a young woman in the throes of the hormonal and psychological torment of a pregnancy. And I've had cancer. And I've talked to women like this for 2 of my, actually 4 years of medical school and 2 years of residency. Think of how many words you don't hear when you get the cancer diagnosis or the pregnancy diagnosis. And you start asking for things that are, wait a second. So trying to get the prescription right, trying to get the medicine right, this is totally different than Plan B. That's a morning after pill. This is a chemical abortion that is done after that, even once the child is implanted and you get a positive pregnancy test, which occurs very early on. And so, good question. We are all as confused. Imagine yourself younger than you are now, Ermelinda, but on your own, trying to navigate this language.
Yeah.
And then they're going to tell you, oh, it's crazy. It's absolutely ludicrous.
Yeah, well, and I think the confusion in terminology is almost deliberate. Yeah, so probably the person Ermelinda was asking at Costco about her insurance and what was covered. Probably the person at Costco you were asking, they got it confused when you asked them.
Absolutely.
So yeah, and I think you're totally right, Dr. John, that when you've got a scared 20-year-old, 17-year-old. And when it's being marketed as, in our first talk, we heard that it's often being marketed as, to restore your period. That's how it's being marketed.
Correct.
You missed your period, and this will bring your period back.
Yes.
That's which is just wild.
It's all lies. It's all lies, and the lies continue even when you have to go to the emergency room. And so, therefore, once you start blurring abortion and contraception on purpose, because one is a backup for the other, a lot of times, you find that everything becomes fungible. And so, good question, guys.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions, folks? Yes, sir.
What's his website?
Dr. John, where can people go on the internet to find out more about you, about Tepeyac, about your various projects,
sure.
maybe your book? So.
Sure. There is a website called twopatients.com for a book, but Divine Mercy Care, DIVINEMERCYCARE, all one word, .org. And you can do info at, and they'll get in touch. I'm there as their director now. Tepeyac, TEPEYAC, OBGYN.com is our medical practice. And up until about a year and a half ago, I was seeing patients there full time. After another illness, I've had to step away for a bit or change. We're now raising money through alms because we're a not-for-profit. So we literally are teaching others how to do this, but we raise money for the good work at Tepeyac so we can care for patients longer than just saving a baby and caring for them throughout their gynecologic history. They can come back because we believe in relationships. But also we're now educating and exhorting the next generation of medical students, residents, nurses, nurse practitioners, and midwives. And that seems to be taking off. We're coming alongside all these other good organizations, Christian Medical and Dental, Catholic Medical, APLOG, and all the other political organizations to try to find our voice within that context. It's really about accompaniment to get folks to really serve their community, because rather than go on a mission trip or rather than go whatever, which is needed, we can serve right in our own communities by partnering and helping out these pregnancy resource centers that are trying to medicalize, if that's what's available. And so it's a real opportunity. So thank you for that. Yeah, those are places. And also, it's also DRJ, capital DRJ, Bruchalski, that wonderful name, at divinemercycare.org if you want to kind of go that way too. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, everyone, let's give a round of applause for Dr. John. Thank you, Dr. John. And
thanks, Johnny.
We certainly are doing in need of some alms and doing a lot of fundraising and good work at our Obria clinic, and I'm sure I'll be picking your brain at some point in the next few weeks.
We absolutely will.
Yeah. Okay.
I was there when Obria started and we started, and there's a connection across the country. God love you guys. Thanks
Wonderful.
so much, Johnny.
All right. Thank you, Dr. John.
You're welcome, sir.
Okay, guys, I'm gonna close things off with my talk just about California stuff. I don't know if anyone wants a break to use the restroom, or if you guys want to just keep on chugging along, or okay, we'll do just like a little 1 minute break, a couple minutes break, just for people to use the restroom, whatever, and we'll do our finishing talk.